Om Sahana Bhavat Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. My prostrations to Gurudev Pujya Swami Chinmaya Ji and a warm Hari Om to all. We have come together to celebrate the National Youth Day on 12th of January, which is the birth centenary of Swami Vivekananda. On this great occasion, Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, which is the youth wing of Chinmaya Mission, has organized an online youth convention across the country comprising more than 90 talks on various topics of relevance to the youth, centered around the theme of gift or GIFT or Geeta, an inspiring friend to treasure. All these talks are accessible through the website chinmayayuvakendra.org. Swami Chinmayananda believed that the youth are not useless, they are only used less. And he found the Bhagavad Geeta to be the perfect instrument with which to inspire the youth to great endeavors. Because the Bhagavad Geeta and its message of Karma Yoga has been known to convert common men into leaders. Today's topic of discussion is Bhagavad Geeta through the eyes of Chanakya and Vivekananda. All the three great personalities, Sri Krishna, Acharya Chanakya, and Swami Vivekananda, were men of action and transformative leaders of that time. How were Chanakya and Swami Vivekananda inspired by the Gita? To talk about this subject, we have a fascinating panel with us today. First of all, let me introduce you to Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai. We all know him as the best-selling author of books on Chanakya and Arthashastra. Who has not heard of books like Corporate Chanakya and seen it in various bookstores across the country? He has written a total of 15 books and all of them are bestsellers. Dr. Pillai, who is also fondly known as Chanakya Pillai, is a teacher to his students, an author to his readers, and a management trainer, consultant, and guide to his clients. Next, we are joined by Srimati Vinita Bajoria, promoter director of Continental Valves and Nico Cables. She is a managing committee member of the Harvard Business School Club of India and a member of the board of governors at IIM Kozhikode. She is also a council member of the All India Management Association and a member of the Higher Education Committee of FICCI. I would also like to introduce to you Srimati Mahima Swarup, who leads the Digital Transformation Initiative at the Paharpur Group, which we all know as a leading global manufacturer of cooling towers and industrial cooling technology, a true blue Calcutta company. Prior to joining her family's business, Mahimaji worked in the Australian mining sector. She holds a bachelor's in geology from Carleton College and an MBA from Harvard Business School, USA. Last but not the least, I take great pleasure in introducing Sri Gautam Jatia, who is the CEO and Managing Director of Imami Frank Ross Limited. Who in Eastern India does not know of Frank Ross Pharmacy and the Star Mark bookstores? Well, Gautam Jatia ji is the force behind that. He is a cost accountant and a management graduate from IIM Calcutta, and he is deeply interested in reading, spirituality, yoga, and God. My name is Vikram Murarka, Secretary of Chinmaya Mission, Kolkata, and I am the moderator for this panel discussion. So we are first going to have a 1-hour talk by Dr. Pillai on the topic of the day, Bhagavad Geeta through the eyes of Chanakya and Vivekananda. This will be followed by a question-answer session between the panelists and Dr. Pillai. I now request Dr. Pillai to take the screen as we are all keen to hear his talk.
Hari Om. Thank you so much, Vikramji, and all my esteemed panelists. It is an honor to speak on the National Youth Day of this country. And it's also so inspiring to speak on the topic of Bhagavad Gita, which is a book which makes all of us active and productive. When Vikramji was introducing all the panelists, as you must have seen, they're all reputed, successful men and women in their respective fields. And the way I look at it, they're all thought leaders as well. Friends, on this particular very important day for our country, that is the National Youth Day, and the birthday of an inspiring youth leader, Swami Vivekananda, what can be a better topic that we have selected? Bhagavad Gita through the eyes of Chanakya and Swami Vivekananda. I'm so fortunate to tell you that I have been part of Chinmaya mission since childhood and during my youth days. And when I say youth days, I've been fortunate that I spent the best of my youth days with Chinmaya mission with the youth wing called as Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, or in short form CHYK, CHYK. Let me tell you very frankly, during those days, we never understood that what we are going to be learning in Chinmaya mission and the youth wing is going to make us successful in different spheres of our life. Yes, as Swami Chinmayananji said, and as Vikramji also mentioned, youth are not useless, they are used less. Youth are not careless, they are cared less. Fortunately, thanks to our parents and a great organization like Chinmaya Mission, we have been able to understand Bhagavad Gita in a very different light, not for post retirement activities, but real activities for making your life successful, especially when you are in your youth days. So, before I start, let me share an instance with all of you, which Swami Chinmayananji used to mention a lot. Gurudev, as we call him, once was asked by someone, isn't Bhagavad Gita meant for post retirement study? And he used to always say, Bhagavad Gita is like a road map which you use before you taking the journey, before you take up the journey. Do you use a road map after you have completed the journey? So when we in the modern day want to drive somewhere, we use a Google map. What is the use of Google Map after you have reached the destination? You better use the maps for navigating and reaching the destiny in a smooth manner. The same thing I like to relate over here. If you are young and as early you can start your study of Bhagavad Gita, it will help you to navigate and reach the goal of life. Why only youth? Why can't we go one step even behind? Today in Chinmaya Mission, we have Balvihar also, which is the children's wing. There also we have so many Bhagavad Gita related activities, right from Bhagavad Gita chanting competition to understanding of Bhagavad Gita to a lot of games, activities, etc. Friends, I want to tell you that if you study the Bhagavad Gita, it is definitely about spirituality, but it is also about guidance in every stage of life activity. Yes, not only spirituality, yes, of course, spirituality, but also life activity. There was once a mother who wanted to teach children values, and she did not know what is the right age for teaching children values. And somebody told her, why don't you go to this child psychologist? She is the one who will guide you. So the mother immediately ran to that psychologist and asked her, can you please guide me? when should I start teaching children values of life? And the psychologist asked, how old is your child? And this lady, the mother said, my child is 8 years old. And the psychologist said, please run home immediately. You are already 8 years late. So you should have actually started from day zero, the day the child was born. Friends, I want to take this one step ahead. In India, we start educating the children about values not from the day they are born, but even before the day they were born. That is called prenatal education. Yes, we have seen Bhakta Prahlad, so many other children who were given education by the mother when they were still in the womb. So the question over here is that if you are young, or if you're a child, or even if you're past your middle age, it doesn't matter. There is no one time or right time to start the study of Bhagavad Gita. As Gurudev used to put it, right time is here and now. So for all the people who are listening to this wonderful gift program, start your journey to understand Bhagavad Gita. Start the journey to understand yourself right here, right now. And for those people who are already on the path of Bhagavad Gita, keep continuing till you achieve your goal. Remember, this is the very bold statement that everybody remembers about Swami Vivekananda. Arise, awake, and stop not till thy goal is reached. So with that, I'm going to be talking about three people without whom India can never be complete. India is not just a land, it is not a geography or a population. India is a culture. And this culture has evolved over generations through the contribution of various masters, saints, and sages. We will be talking about three of them: Sri Krishna, Chanakya, and Swami Vivekananda. If you look at it chronologically, thousands of years ago, when Mahabharata was written, the time period, some say it's 5,000 years old, some say maybe 14,000 years old. Whatever be the time period, that was the first person that we want to talk about, Sri Krishna. Second is Chanakya, who lived around 4th century BC, or what we call around 2,400 years ago. Now comes Swami Vivekananda, not very far from our generation, a few hundred years ago. Of course, pre-independence, but he is a person that we can relate to very closely. India is a land of spirituality, activity. All three of them you can see in the three personalities. So let me start first by talking about Sri Krishna, because Sri Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, right in the middle of the battlefield, is a foundation through which we understand what is practical spirituality. In the Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, Gurudev Swami Chinmaya put it very nicely. It is about dynamic spirituality, not just passive spirituality. We have to understand this. So let's talk about the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and of course, see that philosophy through the eyes of Chanakya and Swami Vivekananda. I think everybody knows about Sri Krishna, a life full of tragedies, yet an ever smiling face. Gurudev Swami Chinmaya used to call him as the blue boy of Vrindavan. So even though you can see a lot of his leelas, but the lessons and the philosophy is something that we should never forget. Every mother like to dress up the child like Krishna. But how many of us are actually practicing the philosophy of Sri Krishna? The life of Krishna itself is a lesson for everyone. But if you want to pinpoint the teachings, among various other instances in his life, the war that happened at Kurukshetra, and the message that he gave to Arjuna in the form of Bhagavad Gita is something that all of us should study and understand. Bhagavad Gita is a book. It is also called as a song of the God. It is about singing Gita. But it is not just about another song. It's about some of the deepest philosophies of our Rishi culture, or what we also call as Vedanta. And also, it is the essence of all the Upanishads. Friends, I'm not here to talk on Bhagavad Gita, but I want you to get inspired for the study of Bhagavad Gita. Already Chinmaya Mission and so many acharyas and all the study group sevaks, Balvihar teachers, Yuva Kendra teachers and sevaks have been teaching Bhagavad Gita. So if you're not part of Chinmaya Mission, you should join one of these wings and study the Bhagavad Gita in detail. But I just want to tell you one concept among many concepts. Yes, one concept of Bhagavad Gita, that is Karma Yoga. And this is a very powerful concept that Gurudev practiced in his own life. And it was continued by our Puja Guruji, Swami Tejomananji, now Swami Sarupananji, and all the other acharyas. It is about activity with the base of divinity. So what is Karma Yoga? There are a lot of interpretations about it, and you should study different interpretations. While Sri Krishna had his own understanding and the explanation given to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Chanakya also practiced Karma Yoga in his own way, and so did Swami Vivekananda. So, what is Karma Yoga? Remember, it is a way of doing things. It is a method and a vision. All of us are active. Activity doesn't mean Karma Yoga. Activity with the right attitude is Karma Yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, we see this principle. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. What is the meaning of yoga? Karma has to be excellent. Perfection. If you do a job, do it perfectly. And we have seen that in Gurudev's life. When he used to write a letter, and I've been fortunate to have a letter of Gurudev itself, and we have seen him working day and night writing letters for so many people. But that letter was written in so much perfection. During those days, there were no emails or internet that the way we have it today. There were no WhatsApp. He used to physically write it with his hand, with a pen and a paper. But I have seen people sitting around and just watching him writing a letter. That itself was a beauty. That itself has given impression to so many people what a small act can actually be a perfect act. That's Karma Yoga. Other important thing is Arjuna, the greatest warrior, unfortunately gets a cold feet during one of the biggest moments of his life. He is a Kshatriya, skilled, trained in weaponry. But looking at the problem in front of him, he decides not to fight. And Sri Krishna says, come on, get up, awake, and go and do your karma. 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita is awakening the Kshatriya in him to say, go, do your karma, do your duty. Friends, in life, each one of us will have to follow his or her karma and swadharma. Yes. Karma is an activity, but with the right attitude becomes karma yoga. Second word which I said right now is finding your swadharma. Very important. Many of us, especially the youth of our generation, I consider very lucky. You know why? Because you have so many opportunities. So many different fields have opened out in front of you. Unlike the previous generations, they only had to study to get a job. But today, the youth can think about creating jobs. But unfortunately, we don't know which is the field for us. Too many opportunities and too much confusion. The solution comes from Bhagavad Gita by saying, before you choose a path, ask yourself, what is your Swadharma? In the case of Arjuna, we find he was a Kshatriya, that is a Swadharma. So he says, even if you want to die, it doesn't matter, but you have to follow your Swadharma. So I would request all of you to do an introspection and find out who you are. What's your natural talent? What do you have as God's gift? Take it up as your career. Give your life to it, commitment into it, and believe me, you will succeed. If every person on this planet comes to know what his or her Swadharma is, there won't be any confusion. And they will naturally do the activity which will help them to reach God. So Karma Yoga is a concept through which you do an activity not only to get worldly success, but spiritual success as well. Now, we only talk about Karma Yoga as a concept, but have people practiced this? And the answer is, so many people have practiced it throughout generations till today. So it is not an old concept. It's a concept which is very dynamic. And any person who is truly dynamic and inspiring is a Karma Yogi. Yes. So let us take Chanakya and understand Karma Yoga through him. Who was Chanakya? I'm sure everybody has heard about him. He lived around 2,400 years ago. He was an Acharya. Yes, he was a teacher. He was an Acharya from which university? Takshashila. He lived in Patliputra, which is modern day Patna in Bihar. And he believed that even teachers should practice Karma Yoga. Usually the impression that we have about teachers is those people who teach in a school or a college or a university. Of course, they are teachers. But remember one thing, that a teacher is not necessarily the one who teaches on the lecture platform. But as Gurudev puts it very nicely, he used to say, a teacher teaches more off the platform. So he is called as Acharya. That means the person who not only teaches, but also follows his own teachings. Acharata iti acharya, one who practices. And sometimes we find the duality. Some people give very good lectures, but off the lecture platform, they don't even practice it. But look at Sri Krishna, Chanakya, or Vivekananda. They all practiced what they preached. Yes, Chanakya was a teacher, but remember, he was a practitioner of the same theories that he spoke about. He wrote the Kautilya's Arthashastra. He trained a lot of young leaders in his particular generation. And of course, the very famous Chandragupta Maurya, who had defeated Dhananand and Alexander also through the wisdom of his guru, Acharya Chanakya. And what's interesting is that he built a golden India during his times. If India became the richest country in the world during those days, it is because of the contribution of a great teacher, an Acharya called Chanakya. So coming to Swami Vivekananda, I think all of us know about him, we heard about him, and of course they're celebrating every year as the National Youth Day. How many of us have tried to understand Swami Vivekananda not only as a young, inspiring Hindu monk who spoke at the World Parliament of Religions and the very famous roaring speech of "My dear sisters and brothers of America"? That's one part of Swami Vivekananda. But how many of us have explored and studied his philosophy and his life? Fortunately, because he's closer to our generation, a lot of documented evidences are available. For example, the letters of Swami Vivekananda, the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. You can go to any Ramakrishna Mission Center and you can find those books. And with technology, many of them you can have the soft copies also. But when you start studying the life of Swami Vivekananda, you see that he was also a rational, dynamic youth who inspired a lot of people to do their activity towards national productivity. Let me take one small instance from the life of Swami Vivekananda. It is said, if Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the nation, Swami Vivekananda is the grandfather of our nation. Yes, this I heard from a monk, a Swamiji from Ramakrishna Mission, when he had come to the Bombay University at the philosophy department. Many years ago, the 12th of January, we were celebrating National Youth Day. And when he said that to me, I said, wow, Swami Vivekananda inspired a lot of freedom fighters to work towards national independence. He was a person who inspired industrialists like the Tata Group to set up research institutions in India. And today, what we are is also the vision of Swami Vivekananda in reality. Friends, I would like to speak about one very interesting topic, which all three, Swami Vivekananda, Chanakya, and Krishna, had put into action, and that is called leadership. Yes, they were all leaders in their own spaces. And I'm going to be talking about 5 points where you can connect all the three great people. So, what is the first point that I would like to see about Bhagavad Gita through the eyes of Chanakya and Swami Vivekananda? The first point is that both Swami Vivekananda and Chanakya were inspired in their young youth days. Yes. So many people say they were born leaders. Yes, they were born leaders. I think every one of us is a born leader. So don't think that, it's a special quality. Like the sun and the grace of sun and the rays of sun is equal to everyone. But not everybody understands the grace and makes the complete value of the grace that the Sun Lord gives us. In the same way, the quality of leadership is there in everyone, but everybody doesn't invoke those qualities. We see that in the life of Chanakya. In the youth days, he was very frustrated with the governance system. And it is natural for the youth to be a rebel. Swami Chinmaya or Gurudev himself, you must have read about him, that he was a very active youth who was participating in the freedom revolution as well. So was Chanakya. He never liked the governance of Dhananand. He was very hot-tempered and short-tempered. He used to always rationalize everything. Youth has to be rational as well. Fortunately, apart from being rational, he also believed and followed the teachers of his generation. It is okay to be dynamic and rational, and you should be rational and dynamic. But without the guidance of spiritual masters, your rationality and your dynamism can go in the wrong direction. Chanakya's own father, Acharya Chanak, used to guide him. And he also took the instructions and the guidance from the other acharyas of the university that he studied in, Takshashila. This is the first thing. Every youth has got leadership qualities, but it has to get directed by the elderly wise people. The Artha Shastra calls it as Vriddha Sanyogaha. What is the meaning of Vriddha Sanyogaha? Two Sanskrit words getting combined. Vriddha means elderly, and Sanyoga means joining. So if you're a youth, if you have a passion, you have a direction in life, you still need a guide. Yes, very, very important. As youth leaders or those youth who want to be leaders, choose your teacher, guru carefully. And it is said, if you're ready, if you have those qualities, the guru will arrive. Fortunately for Chanakya, he found his first guru in his own family, his teacher. And he had many teachers. Finally, he became a teacher himself. So in the youth days, leadership qualities can be developed by each one of us. Next comes Swami Vivekananda. Don't we see that? A young, dynamic youth from Kolkata, rational, wanting to know what is the reality, questions every particular person, and finally lands up at the feet of his guru, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And the famous story, he's asking him, have you seen God? And he's not just a person who will believe anybody and everybody. He's an intelligent, young, dynamic, handsome boy. He wants to know everything in a scientific manner. And when his guru says, I see him as clearly like you, he's taken aback, but he's not convinced. Swami Vivekananda continues to meet him again and again, and then finally discovers that within himself. So the first lesson that we learn is we need to have leadership qualities, but we also require teachers who will guide us. Youth with the right guru will achieve great success in the field of leadership. We also see that in the life of Sri Krishna. Even though he's considered as a Purna avatar, a person who is born with all knowledge, he still went to a guru, Sandipani, as we call it. His guru was Sandipani Rishi. And in our Chinmaya mission, we have Sandipani Sadhnalaya, the Gurukul, where Swami Chinmayananji started it and all our acharyas continued it to study and inspire the youth and the whole world. Yes. So Sri Krishna also made sure that he became a role model to others by having guru, even if you are knowledgeable. Friends, please understand, today is a world of Google. We have information. Yes, we have a lot of information, and sometimes get confused by different information. So we don't know which is news and which is fake news. But if you want to be successful, understand, information is not enough. What you require is insight. Eye to eye, from information to insight. Being informed is not a very difficult thing in today's generation, especially with technology on our side. But the guru will always give you insight about what is right and wrong. So that is the first lesson that we learn from everybody. It's about the youth leadership with direction of a guru or many gurus. The second is about the value of education. Yes, education is not just about literacy. It is not about degrees. Chanakya would say it is about anvikshiki. What is anvikshiki? I'm sure many of you may have heard it for the first time. When I heard it for the first time, I read it in Kautilya's Arthashastra, the book written by Chanakya. I wondered what is anvikshiki. In the Arthashastra, anvikshiki is called as the prathama vidya. Prathama means first. Vidya means, I call it the science of thinking. But Chanakya would call it philosophy, strategy. And Swami Tejomananji, Guruji, has written a book called as Manashodhana. In that he says anvikshiki is also Brahma Vidya. So the highest knowledge you can ever have in this world is anvikshiki. So Chanakya is telling everyone, especially the youth, to be not just educated, but have the rational approach in thinking. So let's go back. In the Bhagavad Geeta, it is not just about commandments. It's a discussion. Until I am convinced, I'll keep asking questions to you. We find the whole 18 chapters, Arjuna asking questions again and again to Sri Krishna. Like a good teacher, Sri Krishna gives answer to every question till he's convinced. In the life of Chanakya also we see, he also questions. There is nothing wrong. We have to question, but the bhava, the attitude is not about challenging somebody. It is not about doubting somebody while asking a question. But the reality is that to know the knowledge and to know that the youth should be highly educated, but they should also be rational in their approach. And finally, we see that in Swami Vivekananda's life. If you read his books, especially the World Travels, he met some of the most intelligent people of his generation. But he preached Vedanta and Indian philosophy with the base of rationality. It is not just about blind faith. It is about faith, Shraddha with logic. Youth will always question. And Gurudev Swami Chinmaya has given a beautiful speech. Try and listen to it. It said, "Youth alone can." Very inspiring speech. And that he says, in every corner of the world, youth are the ones who will change the world. They are the ones who have a future. Old people only have a past. So education should lead to rationality, but let us not forget Shraddha. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam, says Bhagavad Geeta. So this is a second quality we find in everyone. Chanakya or Swami Vivekananda or Sri Krishna himself. Rationality should be the base. And today we are all living in an age of scientific development. And in science, there is this concept called as pramana, which means proof. Just because you say, I don't accept it. Of course, Shabda Pramana is also there. If the Guru says, you should not question him or her. But at the same time, you have to also understand there is something beyond rationality, even though you start with rationality. You see this in the life of Chanakya. He uses Nyaya philosophy, rational philosophy, so many other things in the Ambikshiki process to think clearly. Same thing with Swami Vivekananda, the logical discussion that he had with his own teacher, with his fellow bandhu, sadhus. They all were rational, so beautiful, trying to understand the concept of Brahman to Loka Sangraha, to serve the society. So the second thing that we see about Karma Yoga, it has to be rational and logical. Yes, education should make you intelligent, but also with Shraddha. The third point, which is very important to know, is global approach. Global approach? We think that India was a country limited to ourselves, our geography, our culture. No. Study the lives, you'll be surprised to know that India always had a global approach. How? In the life of Chanakya, we find a word being mentioned. It is called as Vijigishu. What is Vijigishu? Vijigishu means the leader who wants to be a world leader, a world conqueror. And you may wonder, world conqueror? Let us be clear on this. That world conqueror doesn't mean going and killing somebody, looting somebody, taking over kingdoms and treasuries of other countries. That's not our culture. It is a concept of something, do it world best. You can also have the attitude of being a world level winner with the attitude of spirituality. Yes. So let me explain how. Let's say you are playing sports, any particular sports. Is it wrong as a youth to have an approach where you say that I will win an Olympic gold medal in my sports, or I will win a World Cup in the sports that I'm playing? Is it a bad approach or a good approach? Very good approach, isn't it? In the same way, if you start your business, because a lot of youth want to be entrepreneurs. So if you want to be entrepreneur, become number one in the world in that field. So if you manufacture something, become number one. For example, we have a company in India called as TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, a software company. But do you know that it is world's number one in its own space? 4.5 lakh employees, number one recruitment full time. And that makes India proud of having a company like TCS. When all of you go ahead with your careers, whichever field you choose, have a global approach. Chanakya wanted his students to be world leaders with a global approach, taking that particular concept globally. Yes. Swami Vivekananda also had a global approach. He had taken India's concepts, India's philosophy to the world level. That's why his greatest contribution is his own speech and contribution at the Parliament of World Religions. There he's shown the world that what India's philosophy is, and that's something we should be proud of. Same way, if you look at Sri Krishna's Bhagavad Gita's teachings, it's not about something that you do for a personal level. It is for the society, for the whole world. And he talks about Loka Sangha. You have to go and give it back to the whole world through the spirit of Yajna by your own contribution. The youth have to have a global approach with global leadership without the killing aspect. Now comes the fourth part of it, the fourth lesson. All of them were institution builders. You know, it is said that we have drive. Yes, we have to have inspiration, ambition, drive to do certain things. But great leaders build institutions in their lifetimes. What is the meaning of an institution? Institution is an organization or a structure that will outlive you. You will be gone, but your institution survives beyond you. Your teachings, your philosophies keep guiding the generations to follow. Chinmaya Mission is an organization, it's an institution. The founder, Swami Chinmayananji, is no more than physical the acharyas. This we find in the life of Sri Krishna. Through his philosophy, he guided the whole world, and we still get guidance from him. Chanakya wrote the Artha Shastra. It's a guidance of how to run a country, how to build a great governance system. And even today, we look at it. Swami Vivekananda built Ram Krishna Mission, institution, still a role model for all of us. So when you do something, it is very, very important to understand that think long term, think beyond us. Think as if you may be gone, but your work will continue after you. That is also leadership thinking. I have read a book and I was wondering that how did they get the vision? And this book is about how to build institutions or companies beyond 100 years. And I was doing some research and I found out there are many, many companies which have lived for more than 200, 300, 400 year organizations. So for 400 years, these organizations have served generations. These institutions have contributed to the society. And I used to start wondering that how come we think very small? But I realized one thing, no, we Indians always thought very big and institutionalizing everything with systems and process. And then when I studied the life of Adi Shankaracharya, you should study the life of Adi Shankaracharya, another inspiring youth. He went across India, established mathas. He did, the kind of rebuilding of Indian culture, Indian temples, Indian philosophies. And today, when you go to many of these places, in many ancient temples of India, right up till Nepal and various other places, we find Adi Shankaracharya believed in building institutions. Yes, my dear friends, one of the things a Karma Yogi does is to not only do the work in his lifetime, but making sure that the work continues after his or her lifetime. Swami Chinmayanji was once asked, what will happen to Chinmaya Mission after you are gone? Natural, because everybody has got a limited physical time. And he said something very nice. He said, now I'm speaking through one mouth. And after I'm gone, I will speak through hundreds of mouths. Yes, he was a great orator, a great teacher, a Brahmagnani who taught the greatest philosophy to the common man. but he also created institutions. He created Sandipani and so many Chinmaya Mission centers. And today all the acharyas are speaking his vision. So think about this. Very important to build institutions that will continue a vision. That is also a quality of leadership and Karma Yoga. Now I come to a very important aspect. And the fifth point is leadership is also about being a role model. Yes. Leadership is not just about giving speeches or oratoryship or writing books. A lot of people are also writing books on leadership now. But Bhagavad Gita tells this very clearly. Yad yad acharati shreshtaha tad tad vivetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastat anuvartate. In the Bhagavad Gita, we find this very clearly. As the leader behaves, the society will also behave. Yet acharati shreshtaha. Shreshta means all the role models of the society. Sri Krishna was a role model. Think about his life. He never had anything for himself. Right from day one he was born, everything looks like a tragic instance. But he said, a role model will look at every situation with a smile. Born and shifted from his mother to a very remote place. Then, even if he became a king, Dwarka, that also got submerged in the water and the sea. His own Kula, Yadukul, was destroyed. And people say he was the person who created the war. It is not true. Think about this. Both the Pandavas and the Kauravas came to take the help of Sri Krishna, and he split himself into two. One side guiding the Pandavas, on the other side, the Narayani Sena was on the opponent side, on the Kaurava side. So at the end of it, he also got cursed. But he never took it as something negative. He said, I have a work to do. What is that work? Dharma samstharpanarthaya. So what is my duty? Externally things will come and go, but I should have a commitment towards my duty. That's Karma Yoga. And he always smiled. Look at Chanakya's life. It's very nice to see the success of a person, the fame of a person. But the building of a person, the foundation is not that easy. As gold has to be heated again and again and again till it shines. Chanakya also had a lot of ups and downs and tragedies. It is even said that his father was killed by Dhananand, but he never went on to take a revenge. His vision was to build a nation. He built it. And therefore, he is also a role model. He says that I will not stop till my great country revives itself. Swami Vivekananda, read his stories, read his life, so many tragedies, yet always going forward. His health was not in a very good condition. You remember his father had died, there's utter poverty in his family, and he even went to his guru and said, "Oh Gurudev, I'm Krishna Params, please give me money, wealth." He said, "Go and ask Kali Mata." And finally he could not. But the God takes care of those people who work for him with larger purpose. So it's very, very important to know that leaders cannot fall down and become a common man. He has to stick to his vision, to lift the common man to a higher vision. And Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita gives a very clear promise. I will take care of you. Name bhakta pranashyati. If you are following something which is purposeful, I will take care of all the resources required for you. That's a very, very, very big promise. I'll take care of you. Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. I will be the one who will give you everything. But the condition is you should stick to your purpose. Mahatma Gandhi also has put the same thought in a different way. He says, find a purpose, the means will follow. Yes, if you have a purpose in your life, you will get all that is required. But unfortunately, we look at the resources and forget the purpose. Will I get money? Will I get a nice, vehicle, car, bangla, gadi? Will I get a name, fame? No. All these role model leaders never went behind name, fame, but name and fame and money, all the resources followed them. Gurudev Swami Chinmaya used to put it very nicely. He says, if you go behind Lakshmi, Narayan will be very upset. Because we look at the wife, husband doesn't like it, right? But if you go behind Narayana, Lakshmi will follow. Narayana represents knowledge, vision. He represents commitment for a higher purpose. So if you go to something very high, everything will follow you. Look at how Chinmaya Mission was built, or every spiritual organization is built across the globe. The leader of that particular spiritual organization has a larger purpose, and the society contributes to it. So leaders have to be role models. Don't fall low when there are challenges. At times it happens in every leader's life that there are challenges, and sometimes you wonder whether I have chosen the right path. It has happened in everybody's life. You have something called as self-doubt. Chanakya also in between wondered, why am I doing all these things? Same thing happened with Swami Vivekananda. You read his books and you study, he said, did I take the right decision? And he was almost going to give up. But that night, in his dream, came his own guru, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and he pulled him back. So yes, in everybody's life who has got a purpose, an objective, a larger aim, will have these self-doubting moments. And you wonder whether I have taken the right path. But if you are taken the right path and you have Shraddha, the resources will come to you. That is God's promise. So how do I summarize all these points that I have said? Number one, get inspired by the lives of these three great people. Lord Shri Krishna, Chanakya, Acharya Chanakya, and Swami Vivekananda. But how do you get inspired? Inspiration comes from Swadhyaya. Chinmaya Mission has been doing wonderful work by reaching out the scriptures to the common man. But once you have understood what scriptures is, don't stop, study it. And fortunately, all the three great people that we spoke about today, all their works are documented. But go and pick up books and start reading them. Discuss with your friends, and you will be surprised. In discussion, you will get a lot of insights. The first thing, as youth, don't just gather information, but try to study deeper and deeper and deeper and get the insights. Second thing, as Chanakya puts it, if you got an idea, don't stop over there. Start something about it. Take up some project. Take up something and do it. Build something over that particular idea. Swami Vivekananda put it very nicely. Take up one idea and give your life to that. That is the way to success. Let every part of your body just take up that one idea. Just dream about it day and night. That's the way to success. So in this particular National Youth Day celebrations, that session, the panel discussion that we have organized should not be about another nice program. Take up one thought, take up one idea, and then through that idea become a karma yogi. Practice it. And with the Shraddha and the faith, success is going to come to you. I'm going to stop with one story of Chanakya. And this is a story that Guruji, Swami Tejomananji told me. Guruji is so sweet. Even though he keeps inspiring, in a nice way, he will keep educating you. So he's an inspiration and an educator. So once I was sitting with Pujya Guruji, Swami Tejomananji, and he asked, "Oh, Chanakya expert, come here." So I feel very bad, when all these great gurus tell me to talk about it. So he said, "Okay, tell me something about Chanakya." So in a very humble manner, I told 2-3 things. And then he suddenly questioned me. "Tell me one thing. What is the greatest teaching of Chanakya?" I was taken aback. How can you answer a question like that to a guru like that? A great spiritual master who is also a world leader. That time I was the head of Chinmaya Mission worldwide. I was wondering what to answer. But I remembered one thing. Great Sishyas don't answer. They wait for an answer from the teacher. So I just kept quiet. Tejananji smiled and he told a story. So I'm going to tell that story to all of you. He said that long ago, during Chanakya's times, India became the richest country in the world, the most knowledgeable country in the world, the most powerful country in the world. And you know what? When your knowledge, money, power, the world comes to you. Like how we go to all these developed countries for studying, for doing businesses, getting job opportunities. Very soon, everybody will come back to India. Okay. So during the Chanakya days, because we were very successful globally, people came. And students from Greece also came to India. Yeah. That was another parallel civilization. So when they went and they were looking at India, oh, so prosperous, so rich. Yes, India had a golden era during Chanakya's time. They asked the common man, what is the reason for your richness? How come India is such a rich country? So the common man said, we have a great Raja. Yatha Raja, Tatha Praja. So we have this great Raja. Who is this Raja? Chandragupta Maurya. And he said, oh, they were all students, So they were doing case study analysis. They wanted to know what is the secret of India's success. So the common man says, go to the leader. And they go to the leader, Chandragupta Maurya. And he says, we want to know the secret of how you have made this country the richest country in the world, the most prosperous country in the world. How do you run this country? Chandragupta Maurya, the king, looks at those students from Greece, the foreign students, and said, I don't run the country. Huh? Who runs the country? I think the leader runs the country. He said, no, my guru, my teacher, Chanakya, he runs the country. So they said, can we meet him? Of course you can meet him. So the students started wondering, there is a leader, and the leader also has a guru, a leadership guru. So where can we find him? He said, go to that forest. Forest? I think the advisor to the king, the teacher to the king should be in the kingdom. But they had to go to the forest, a small hut, a small gurukul. And they saw a man over there. And they went to him. He was having just a dhoti on his body. And this went, can we meet this person whom they call as Acharya Chanakya? And that person said, yes, I am Acharya Chanakya. Tell me, huh? Such a powerful person. The king says he runs the country. And you are such a common man. And he says, come inside, sit. Let's have a discussion. So these Greek students are totally confused. They don't understand what is all this happening in our country. Everybody is rich and happy. And we ask them, why are you rich and happy? Leader. I go to the leader. He says, I don't run the country. Who runs the country? This man. And they ask him, how do you run this country? And he says, I don't run the country. Huh? But that student of yours says, you run the country. He comes to you every day, asks you suggestion. Yeah, I give him suggestion. But actually, I don't run the country. Then who runs the country? Dharma runs the country. Dharma runs the country. Dharayati iti dharma, that which holds. My duty as a teacher is to show the leader what his dharma is. Dharma also means natural laws. Once you work very closely with nature, with natural laws, with the principles, then believe me, you become a great leader, and a great leader makes everybody happy. Because it's National Youth Day, and this is also the day all of you have to think about leadership. Remember, every leader has to be a Raja Rishi. Raja plus Rishi. And Rishi always thinks about what is right and wrong. Dharma. Otherwise, you'll have Dharma Sankat. Never have Dharma Sankat. Even if you have Dharma Sankat, you have Sri Krishna with you, who will take away your Dharma Sankat through Bhagavad Geeta. And follow the life of all the three great men. You will become not just another youth leader, but an inspiring spiritual youth leader who will be successful in any field he or she chooses. All the best, and once again, happy National Youth Day. Hari Om.
Thank you so much. You told us about the 5 points that you have to be, uh, you have to have Vriddha Sayog, look for the guidance of a guru, and that there should be anvikshiki, or the thirst for, or the right way of the pursuit of knowledge, or the science of thinking, and that you should have a global approach, and that you have to be an institution builder and a role model. So these were the points that we got, and I would now request any our three panelists. They have been following. All of us have been very eager to hear your talk. So if we have could have questions for you from the panelists, maybe Srimati Vinita Bajoria, if you have it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pillai, for that absolutely amazing and inspiring talk. We were completely in raptures. So I'm, as it is, a huge fan of yours, and I've been reading all your books. So it was so, I think the youth of today really need to listen to wisdom like this, and I'm sure it'll really guide them. Dr. Pillai, I just have, you touched upon something called dynamic spirituality as opposed to passive spirituality. Can you just explain that a bit, please?
Yes, thank you, Vinita ji. Gurudev gave a very nice motto to Chinmaya Yuva Kendra: harnessing youth potential through dynamic spirituality. You know, for many years, I did not understand what does dynamic spirituality mean. Till I understood that a lot of people who are so-called spiritual become lazy in the name of spirituality. Okay, for example, if they work very hard and suppose the success doesn't come to them, okay, they blame it on their destiny, and they say mere naseeb mein nahi hai, you know, and they may have faith in God, but they don't put that extra efforts. While Gurudev says don't look at results only, okay, keep doing your work, karma yoga, that doesn't mean that results will not come. Okay, so Gurudev believed in planning a lot, and very famous statement of Gurudev: plan out your work and work out your plan. So what happens is that many times people don't know what is planning and what is importance of strategy. And if you don't have planning and strategy, and even if you have spirituality, then you know what happen, you may just have some devotion. But we don't just want devoted youth, we want strategic, dynamic youth. So devotion is a must, as they say, Guru Bhakti, Desha Bhakti. But every devotion doesn't mean it is strategic in nature. And it may not be dynamic in nature. So the way I have been trained in the Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, I manage some 200-300 projects, you know, at simultaneously. And I always wonder, how did I get this skill? Not just because, you know, I've done some MBA and things like that. Every moment I go back to the way Chinmaya Yuva Kendra trained us. When he used to organize a camps, you know, Vikramji may know this, you know, Chinmaya Mission gets into so much detailing, the kind of a detailing that the corporate world also may not do. So coming back, this point of dynamic spirituality is not just about activity, it is about planning, strategy, implementation, review. So this is something that I believe that youth should also take all these words seriously. Otherwise, there's a failure, and that failure can remain with you throughout your life. One thing I want to make over here, Vinita ji, is that, see, youth by age-wise has got a limitation, age-wise, you know. So, you know, maybe we call a youth somebody who's from 18 to maybe 35 years or whatever. Afterwards, naturally it ages. But if you have the attitude of a youth and you build these skills inside yourself, the strategic thinking skills, then after your youth days, maybe your 40s, 50s, and 60s, also that youth dynamism will remain with you. So when we met Gurudev, he was very old physically. But as everybody says, you know, he was more young than most of the youth around him. His dynamism was contagious. So even though 77 years, he could inspire a complete generation. So what is for me, that dynamic youth is a state of mind that never gives up. But it is not just about willpower. It is also strategic thinking and plan out your work and work out your plan. Thank you.
That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mahima ji, would you like to put up a question?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Dr. Pillai, for such an enriching discussion. Just fascinating to see the connect over centuries. The one question I had was obviously on karma yoga and what you said about finding your swadharma. Now that is, loosely translated, your highest purpose. Now, given how the world, is changing, and it changes, what was 5 years ago may not be relevant 10 years later. Do you feel there's only one single swadharma for all of us? Or do you feel that it may evolve over time for each one of us?
Very, very nice question. Today, the change is so fast. Okay. So there was a concept called generation. And generally, the concept of a generation was measured in 20 years time span. So let's say if there is, somebody's 20-year-old and somebody's 40-year-old, they're two generations. But with the change that's happening around, I think we almost have same generation parallelly. So I think the kind of a technology that I use and my father use and maybe my children use are the same. Isn't it true? So what you said is very interesting that, today the change is so fast. Now coming back about Swadharma and Dharma. In fact, it is said very clearly in the Artha Shastra also. We have to understand what is the common Dharma and what is the changing Dharma. And this is very, very important. So what is the common Dharma? There are a lot of common Dharmas. For example, to be a Sishya, lifelong learner, you have to be common. You cannot say, I'm a teacher that will never study. In fact, it is said that every good teacher is always a student and every student should always be a teacher. And Gurudev created that model in Chinmaya Mission. I started teaching when I was young to Balvihar children. Okay. And when I became older, I started teaching the youth. So you are a teacher and a student simultaneously. So that's called Samanya Dharma. You have to learn and teach. Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. So lifelong you have to do that. Now comes the Dharma that is depending on your profession and your role. For example, when I'm joining a company, probably I'm a trainee. So my Dharma is to learn. When I become a boss or a leader, my Dharma changes. At home, I may be a husband, a son, a father. That time my role changes. In a Chinmaya mission, my Dharma is to be a devotee, a student. When I go out in the public, suppose, I'm supposed to vote every year or vote during the election times. That's also my Dharma. So there are multiple Dharmas and there are common Dharmas. So Swadharma includes saying that find out yourself what is that one thing. Of course, from a professional standpoint, you have to find out that one field in which you have to commit yourself. That's one part of it. But Dharma also changes. But the right person, as Chanakya says, always thinks, what is my duty and what is expected to be done here right now? Okay. So if I'm a very successful person in the office, I cannot come home and act like a successful person at home. There, I will be like a father or a son, depending on who is in front of me. So you said it very nicely. Dharma is situation based. And this is what the Dharma Sankat we find in the case of Arjuna also. Arjuna's role, Dharma, was to fight because he was in the battlefield. But he was thinking like a grandson of Bhishmacharya. So the misfit of Dharma or Swadharma comes in over there. And Sri Krishna had to remind him, listen, absolutely right. He is your grandfather and he'll always be your Pitama. Don't worry about that. But in the battlefield, you cannot change your role. Okay? So it's very, very important. The right Dharma at the right time for the right purpose. And once the role is over, it's okay. You go back. In the Mahabharata war, they were fighting. But in the evening, they were together having dinner. So in the morning, they were all fighting against each other as enemies. But in the evening, they were brothers. So not many people get confused. How is this? Because there is something called as a Dharma Yuddha. So when Yuddha has rules, like we have prisoners of war in today's generation, you can take somebody as a prisoner because he's lost the war and he's an enemy. But you cannot torture them. The legal law says that you cannot do that. That's a dharma of a Kshatriya. He was doing his duty. I'm doing my duty. I'll give you one small instance. And this is very, very clearly seen in the life of Alexander when he defeats Porus. And he asks him, that saying that now how should I treat you? Because you are a lost person. And Porus says very nicely, saying that the way a king treats another king. So what if I'm lost? The dharma of you is to treat me like a king. So coming back to your question, Maimaji, the thing is that having a clear answer of what is a dharma is not very easy because we play multiple roles simultaneously. But the beauty is that when you're in doubt, you can go to your guru and ask him. He will tell you what to do and what not to do. So when you have a dharma sankat, you should have a guru and he will tell you what is your dharma and swadharma at that given moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Gautamji.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, Vikram. I'm extremely thankful to Chinmaya Mission for having invited me to this wonderful talk by Dr. Radhakrishna Pillai. As an author, he is very well known to us at Starmark. He is one of our superstars, like his books sell by the dozen. So the entire team was very thrilled that I am sharing this forum with him. They said, sir, you must get him to Starmark. So I said, yes, definitely I will get him. So Dr. Pillai, I have a question that, in Gita, we talk about the concept of Abhyuday and Nishrayata. Abhyuday is working for the common good and Nishrayata is for your spiritual growth. So in today's modern age where, it's a rat race and it's a very, very materialistic world, how would you explain to the youth that how can they, follow these two principles and yet be successful? So I would request you to elaborate on this.
Thank you, Gautamji. Very nice question. Swami Swarupananji puts it very nicely. In the rat race, even if you are a winner, you are still a rat. Okay. So the thing is that we have to somewhere blame our current education system also, and I'm a part of it. I'm trying to bring in some change also. So I will tell you, our education system actually is an examination system. Please understand, it's a very deep thing I'm telling. And with the national education policy coming around, all the teachers over here who are listening, please understand that don't make them get into the grid of competition. Teach them what is collaboration. Unfortunately, our system has brought us only two things, that is competition and comparison. And imagine what kind of a youth or what kind of a generation are you creating when everybody is competing. And competition means that you don't trust each other. There is jealousy. So go back to the Gurukul model. You'll be surprised. There is some competition in the form of games. That's okay, competition is good on the sports field to some extent. But in life, if you keep competing, you will never grow. But now comes the question about Abhyudaya and Nishrayasa. In India, there is a very interesting concept. When we were spiritually rich, we are also materially rich. So they're not two different things, I don't know, some funny ideas people say, जहाँ पे लक्ष्मी है वहाँ पे सरस्वती नहीं है, या फिर जहाँ पे सरस्वती है वहाँ पे लक्ष्मी नहीं है. We are the only country which has proved that जहाँ पे सरस्वती है वहीं लक्ष्मी है. And I'll tell you one thing that's very interesting to know. They are not separate. Unfortunately, we think they're separate. So Abhyudaya and Nishrayasa goes hand in hand. How do you do that? Very simple. Instead of looking at a competition outside, you should look at competition inside. For example, if you have a company, okay? Now, if you got a turnover of, let's say, 100 crore. Now, the thing is that you can easily feel bad by looking at somebody who's 1,000 crores and all this thing, I will make it 1,000 crore company. You will, but, it requires different strategies, different, roadmap. But I would say year on year, ask yourself, last year, how much was I? So maybe 800 crores. Today, I'm 1,000 crores. But tomorrow, I should have a target of 1,200 crores. Okay? Slowly, you keep growing. And always there is a better benchmark. So I may be 100 crores, becoming 200 crores, 1,000 crores. But the thing is that if you keep comparing with others, you'll always feel bad. But at the same time, if you compare with somebody who's lower, you'll feel, I'm better than you. Never do that. So what you should do, if somebody's better than you, learn from them. That's why we call it benchmarking and case study. If somebody's lower than you, teach them. So you can learn from people who are better than you, and you can teach them those people who are behind you. So this is also Guru Sishya Parampara in the corporate world. So you don't have to compete. Coming back, it's very, very important that ask yourself what is your benchmark and go towards it. So strive yourself. So the best competition is not against somebody outside. The best competition is with somebody inside. So if you can actually practice that, making myself better year on year, year on year, year on year, believe me, you'll be happy, satisfied, and always you will grow. It will be a balance of Abhyudaya and Nishrayasa.
Thank you so much.
I have a few questions for our panelists also. Gauthamji, you and I have studied in the best missionary school in the country, and both of us are very proud of our alma mater. And for all Calcuttans, the landmark or now the Starmark stores that you set up would count as one of their favorite bookstores or even hangout zones. Uh, you are a marketing maven with deep customer insights, and you told me that you started reading Swami Vivekananda while you were still in school, and you are a yoga practitioner. So, from your personal educational experience and from your professional experience, at what age do you think a young person should start reading the Bhagavad Gita? And what difference will it make in his life and why? If you could share any anecdote from your life, that will be even more delightful for all of us.
See, Vikram, the thing is, both of us have been very lucky to study at one of the best convent schools of Kolkata. And, this education has greatly shaped our character, my character, and equipped me to face the world. But somewhere I feel now, if I look back, that a very vital part of my education was missing. I missed out exposure to our Vedantic culture, exposure to our Indian ideals, our cultural heritage. Our education, like Dr. Pillai said, was all about exams. It was all about appreciating Western culture and Western achievements. I think we barely had a chapter on Rig Veda. We didn't have any chapters on our rishis and munis as part of our curriculum, but I think we learned a lot about Western history, the Christian crusades. We learned about the Mughal empire. So I'm saying those were necessary, those are necessary, but it is very important that we should be taught to learn and appreciate our culture, learn and appreciate our achievements. That gives you the pride which comes from being a Indian, the pride which comes in being a Hindu. It's been inspiring to hear Dr. Pillai, and thank you, Vikram, and thank you, Chinmaya Mission, for giving us this opportunity.
Vinitaji, from your experience as a corporate leader, how relevant do you think are the lessons of the Bhagavad Gita for modern business management? And lastly, since you are deeply involved in the field of higher education, do you think that the lessons of the Bhagavad Gita should be formally taught in our colleges and universities?
Thank you, Vikramji. As the observer, have the power to shape the world into however we wish. And that is where the scriptural studies come in, that through the scriptural studies, we can actually shape our thoughts and our actions in the right direction and really make our lives and the world a much better place. And there's so much wealth and with the help of technology again, because with this huge ed tech and digital revolution, the scriptural knowledge can be imparted so easily all across the world, and a single teacher sitting in a remote village, the guru, can actually train millions and millions of shishyas all over the world. And of course, I'm a great believer that, and with the help of the new with the national education policy, that we must start teaching the scriptures, and we must have books like Dr. Radha Krishna Pillai's books as part of the core curriculum, because when everything depends on the observer and the power is with the observer, so it is so easy for us to strengthen the mind of the observer by giving them the correct tools which are available in Bhagavad Gita, which teaches you the right karma, the right dharma, to Artha Shastra, which actually lays down a complete code of conduct and is actually a ready reckoner for all businessmen, in be it in any function. They can just look at it and they get an answer. Like you say, when you face a problem in your life, you just open the Bhagavad Gita and you get an answer. So similarly, if you face any issue in your corporate life, you just have to open the Artha Shastra and therein lies the answer. And Chanakya Niti, of course, you get for the common man, there's an answer. So when we have such a rich heritage, it would be a shame that if we are not able to teach it to our next generation. So thank you so much.
That was amazing. But what you said about Dr. Pillai's books being being part of the curriculum, I think they already have been recommended, Dr. Pillai.
I've been fortunate that the books have been recommended not only in universities and school, but also at the lower, the basic level, that is the school curriculum, apart from universities and colleges. And what's very interesting to see that I have already trained around 1,000 principals on how to introduce Anvikshiki in schools in the next academic year. Wow. And you'd be fortunate that Chinmaya Missions, our own CIRS, Chinmaya International Residential School, Swami Anukulanand has already introduced Anvikshiki in this curriculum itself. So we are doing it, and I'm sure, as it is said, that it is not about ancient, but it's about eternal knowledge.
Right.
So it is not about what was in the past. So it is not ancient knowledge. This is eternal knowledge. Thank you, Vinita ji, for that insight.
I would now like to ask a question to Mahima ji. I have to tell you a little bit about her. She's done very exciting and offbeat things, if I might call it that, like working with burly coal miners in the Australian outback and doing geological field studies and mapping in places like Israel and Turkey. So that's something that many young people would jump at. So today she is driving the digital transformation at Paharpur Cooling Towers and taking the company into the era of Industry 4.0 and into the era of Internet of Things. So Mahima ji, how do you see yourself utilizing in the practical sense the lessons of the Bhagavad Gita in your professional sphere, not only to drive the transformation you're working on, but also to empower your team of data scientists, engineers, and executives?
So working in the Australian outback now feels like another lifetime ago.
Okay.
But I think to answer your question on how I have applied the lessons of the Gita in the professional sphere, let me give a little bit of context on what I do. So at Paharpur, for the last couple of years, I've been focusing on new product development and more specifically building a digital twin. Now, a digital twin, very simply, is a virtual representation of a physical asset. So in our case, it's a virtual representation of our air-cooled condenser, and it allows us to monitor the data, the operations, the processes, as well as the life cycle of the asset in real time. Building a digital twin is, I would say, not the most straightforward task. In fact, it requires us to build up a lot of capabilities. So right from cloud computing to software development, introducing advanced analytics, applying machine learning techniques, all the various, let's say, buzzwords that you hear of Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, we have had to, pretty much learn from the very beginning and put it into action. We are not I think the one thing that we must remember is that we are not of Google or a Facebook. Paharpur has been, an engineering company for the past 70 years, and it serves a largely conservative and unchanged power industry. For us to move into this is something that probably every entrepreneur, every person who started a new business venture, anyone who has taken on a new challenge will identify with. is that when you're putting out a new product or just anything new into the market, it comes with a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity. It is not something that has, let's say, past metrics of success. There's no clear roadmap. There's no clear, path saying that, am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right way? The question you asked, Vikramji, was that how, the team consists of data scientists, engineers, business executives. What is common amongst all of these? They all love data. They want to be structured. They want things measured. They want to be precise. So it is, if you put them in an environment that is uncertain and ambiguous, it's most likely going to result in disaster, or at least not disaster, but a lot of demotivation in case we face failures. And failures will be inevitable, as we all know, in life, in business. There are times when you will face struggles, you will face challenges. And so that's where I think the learnings of Karma Yoga as well as the Gita become super, super important. I think even as, they say one is to perform action and not look at and not pay attention to its fruit. But also what Dr. Pillai earlier said in his talk is there are two aspects to action. One is to perform it perfectly, as efficiently as you can. And the other is with the right spirit. So today, I feel that anyone who is in such a position where, and we all are, whether, life is like that, it's unpredictable, it's uncertain, it's ambiguous, that as long as we perform with the right spirit, with, as best as we can, we will, at some point down the line, we may face success. Now, given that this is National Youth Day, I think, and one of my passions is also cricket. So I think I'll draw a very, an analogy that maybe some of our viewers may identify with. And this goes to one of my favorite cricket bowlers in history, which is Glenn McGrath. He's an Australian bowler, and he was very, very successful. In fact, you take Sachin Tendulkar. I think the only time I've seen Sachin Tendulkar being consistently uncomfortable in front of a bowler, it is Glenn McGrath. Now, Glenn McGrath, despite being one of the most successful bowlers, he was branded as, by his own teammates, one of the most boring bowlers to watch. So, and why is that? So they said that because he lands the ball in the same place every single time he bowls. And this is, if you are a cricket fan, you might know it's called the corridor of uncertainty. So when the ball falls in this corridor of uncertainty, which lies, just outside the batsman off stump, the batsman doesn't know whether he should play it forward, whether he should play it back, or whether he should leave the ball. So if he plays it, sometimes the ball might edge his bat and go back for a catch, or if he leaves it, he might get bowled. So it's one of the most difficult balls to face. But Glenn McGrath, for some reason, he would bowl long spells, ball after ball after ball, in this corridor of uncertainty. So he was not, let's say, he didn't have the speed of Brett Lee. He didn't have the flamboyance of, let's say, Shoaib Akhtar. He didn't have the swing of Waqar Younis or Wasim Akram. But he was, he was so successful because he just did what, without really looking at what the batsman would do, because eventually the batsman may make a mistake. His job was to bowl the ball in that spot, and that's what he did. So I think for me, that kind of embodies in some ways, even though he comes from a different culture, community from us, it embodies the, let's say, the principle of what right action is, which is do what you have to do most efficiently, most perfectly, with the right spirit, and the success will follow. So I apply all of this back to, my learnings, even in the professional sphere. Today, we can't predict, especially given the COVID-19 pandemic. We don't know where the world so often is headed. And the only way to deal with ups and downs and struggles is just to keep doing, keep persisting with some dogged determination, with your dharma, finding your swadharma in different, let's say, situations, applying it. And if you have the fortune of having a guru, then, consulting your guru and moving on.
Thank you so much. You have taken the time and you brought in the concepts of the Gita, Chanakya, Krishna, Vivekananda. There, the 5 points about leadership that you brought in. All our panelists have shared their personal points of view, their experiences, and we've had such an enriching session. We were slated to do it for a limited period of time. That time has stretched. So I think it is just the quality of the discussion that we have had. But we can't keep going on forever. We have to draw this to a close. So with with my thanks to everybody, to Dr. Pillai, Vinita Bajoria ji, Mahima Swarup ji, Gautam Gatia ji. Thank you very, very much. I will end as we traditionally end, and I would request, in fact, I would request Dr. Pillai to end it with our traditional Om Purnamada, please.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti
Shanti, Shanti.
Hari Om
Om.
Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you very much.